morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, December 17th, 2013. It's 9 a.m. We're at the Palm Coast Community Center for the regularly scheduled meeting of the Palm Coast City Council. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Netz?
Here.
Vice Mayor DiLorenzo?
Here.
Councilmember Ferguson?
Here.
Councilmember Lewis?
Here.
Councilmember McGuire?
Here.
Mayor, all members are present.
Thank you very much. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 3rd City Council meeting and the December 10th City Council workshop. Are there any additions, corrections, or is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 2, special recognition. Recognizing December 17th, 2013 as Georgia Turner Day. Mr. McGuire.
I'm going to ask Luann Santangelo and Casey to join me up here because I don't speak Southern, so. But if anybody asks, it's fair to Midland. Proclamation, whereas Georgia Turner became Vice President of Tourist Development in November 2011 and has worked closely with the City of Palm Coast, the Flagler County Chamber of Commerce, Flagler County, the other cities in our county, the hotels, restaurants, attractions, cultural organizations, and others who contribute to local tourism over the past 2 years. And whereas Georgia oversaw the development of the new name, look, and logo for local tourism, uniting us all as Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches. And whereas a study conducted for the Flagler County Tourist Development Council shows that 1.6 million visitors came to the Palm Coast and Flagler Beaches area in 2012, and annual expenditures for visitors is $260 million. And whereas tourism in Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches generates employment of 3,300 people with a payroll exceeding $57 million, and the percentage of local sales tax paid by tourists is 30%, and whereas tourism increased dramatically during Georgia's time at the helm, resulting in a 5% increase in bed tax collections in the 2012-2013 fiscal year, providing more than $1.5 million in collections that were invested into our community. And whereas Georgia spearheaded efforts to create both arts and hospitality alliances to build synergy and coordination within those industries for the benefit of tourism, and whereas Georgia was integrally involved in the development of the Sports Alliance and the resulting increase in sports-related tourism in Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches, and whereas Georgia always has a smile on her face and her enthusiasm has inspired us all to strive for greatness as we work together to bring people to our slice of paradise. And whereas Georgia will soon be returning to her hometown of Florence, Alabama to become communications manager for the Florence Lauderdale Tourism Office, though we know a piece of her heart will always remain in Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Council of the City of Palm Coast that December 17, 2013 be officially designated Georgia Turner Day in the City of Palm Coast, and that we wish Georgia all the best as she heads home to Alabama, but also ask that she promises to visit Palm Coast and the Flagler Beaches open. Signed the 17th day of December 2013. City of Palm Coast, Florida, John Netz, Mayor.
No, everybody may not know, but Bill knows this. My family's really from St. Louis, Missouri. originally. Wow, what a huge surprise and what a wonderful thing. I thought Mr. Landon was going to roast me. That was what I thought was going to happen. But I can't even tell y'all how much this means to me and what a wonderful, wonderful couple of years it's been for me. But you do know I got to go home, be with my mama. So anyway, and I'm also from Sheffield, Alabama. That's a little known fact, and my hometown is Florence. So, so anyway, but I can't even say how much it's just been an honor, a pleasure, everything to be with y'all. When I was in Nashville, Tennessee, one year in 2002, I guess it was, I came down here 12 times in 1 year. So you're not going to get rid of me that quickly, but thank you so much to all of you, all of y'all, all of y'all for a wonderful, wonderful couple of years. Thanks to Rebecca, who's originally the person that gave me this opportunity, which was just absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much. Thank you, Bill. You've been such a big supporter. Thank you, Mr. Landon. Palm Coast, Palm Coast, Palm Coast, Palm Coast, Palm Coast. I don't think that was 25 times, but I'll try it again. So, but just thank y'all so much. I can't even tell you how much this means to me. So thank you again.
Just one last little item. On behalf of the City of Palm Coast, we just want to thank you and please accept this token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Louie, for everything. I miss you too. Thank you, Casey.
You have to open it now, or pull it out.
Okay. Okay.
This is actually cool. Group photo.
I'll hold the Palm Coast bag.
There we go.
Thank you, Georgia. Best of luck. Now, on a more somber note, as I'm sure you all know, Saturday evening around 7 p.m., a severe weather event, which we now know as Starlight Tornado, touched down at several locations within the city of Palm Coast. As a result of the aftermath and the survey that followed, yesterday afternoon, under the power vested in me by the Palm Coast City Charter, I declared a local state of emergency. The reason for this is multiple. First, it may entitle our residents in our city to receive compensation from FEMA or other support organizations. Secondly, it will allow the city staff to take extraordinary measures to help restore normalcy to the lives of our citizens who've been affected by this tornado. Speaking of city staff, you can't say enough good things about them. Within moments after the tornado warning was first received, the entire city staff was mobilized on the streets with the primary objective of determining whether or not there were injuries as a result of the storm. Secondarily, to ensure that there were no subsequent injuries, either to residents or to the emergency response staff. Thirdly, was to ensure that utilities and streets remained open and available. I want to give great thanks to our fire department, our building department, code enforcement, did a marvelous job, and they continue to do so. Also, special thanks to Sheriff Jim Manfrey and the Sheriff's Department. Their presence made us all feel safer and facilitated the initial survey and the subsequent cleanup. Also, special thanks to Flagler County, County Administrator Mr. Coffey, County Emergency Services Director. They were there offering their full support. This time I'd like to call upon our Fire Chief, Mike Beadle, to give us an after-event summary and where we go from here. Chief?
Thank you,
And
Mr.
then if
Mayor.
you will introduce your colleagues.
Yes, sir, I will do that first. With me this morning is Deputy Chief Jerry Forte. I've just asked them to sit. This might be a while, so, but they are available. Deputy Chief Forte is with me. Our new emergency manager to the county, Kevin Guthrie, who, well, I'll get into that, his part that he's played through this. We have Senior Commander Mark Harmon, who's always with us. He was out on the street with us. And then Commander Bob Weber from the Sheriff's Office. If I could, I'll give you what happened, where we were the night of the event, where we seem to be today. I'll have Mr. Guthrie come up and explain some of the state and federal avenues we're attempting to reach out to. And then by all means, during this, if there's any questions, anybody, please feel free to wave me down and we'll try to give you an answer. As the mayor just said, Saturday night was the Starlight Parade, and as most of you know that you were there, we started the parade off. We knew that there was weather in the area, so we were watching it diligently. I say we, for those of you that don't know, I was the guy with the white beard and the red hat, sitting at the stand when you went by with my wife. We every year, my wife and I are the moderators for the parade. So my duties that night as emergency manager / fire chief for the city went to the deputy chief. About float number 45, as I recall, as my wife and I were calling him coming down the street, Casey Ryan came over and knelt down behind me and whispered in my ear that the parade had been called off, and to which that just kind of threw me in a tailspin, no pun intended. I asked her why, and she said there was a tornado warning. Now, all the radios and phones that I have are laying on the desk, and I didn't pick any of them up to see what was going on. Chief Forte had made the decision it was time to call the parade off. So at 6:40, we did just that. We ended the parade and we began public address announcements to everybody in attendance in Town Center to please get to their car, get to a shelter. We had impending weather heading our way. We did not mention tornado at that time. It was just a severe weather event. At 6:58, we did receive that tornado warning from our county emergency management, and Jack's Weather had started sending out these blasts that we were under for some weather. So at 6:58, that warning was issued. At 7:04, the first call came in from Brittany Lane that a tornado had in fact touched down in their neighborhood. Interestingly enough, I got to hear that first 911 call, and they're very good friends of ours. The caller was an emergency room doctor that it had touched down in her backyard. Yes, it is a very small world. At 7:11, our first units arrived, so within 7 minutes of that call, we had fire personnel in the neighborhood starting to assess the damage. As I was en route, we were getting updates and reports, and at that point, we thought it was in the Bridgehaven area, Brittany Lane area. Upon arrival, you could definitely tell something had happened, and we weren't sure what it was. We do not have the all to, if you will, to make those determinations, but the National Weather Service had 2 meteorologists on the ground with us Sunday who made the determination it was in fact an EF1 tornado that touched down. Within 30 minutes of that call, I received a call via radio from EM1 requesting permission to enter the city of Palm Coast for assistance. That would be Mr. Guthrie. So within 30 minutes, he was standing next to me, and we were starting to make those decisions and the plans of what we, in fact, we're going to need for the days to come, if you will. I was on the phone with FP&L, so if anybody in the city lost their power, that was my fault. I just pretty much told them to throw the switch real quick until we got a handle as to where we actually needed. I give kudos to FP&L. Within 30 minutes of that call, they were with me. I had 3 trucks sitting there with a supervisor. Gave them the synopsis of what we knew we had at that point. They started going street to street and started to isolate streets so that we could get the infrastructure and our sewer systems and traffic lights and those things back up and running. I counted Sunday morning at some point 15 FP&L trucks within the city, so they rallied very quickly. Excuse me. The other side of things was our dispatch center and our deputies. They responded, and we had them in the streets with fire trucks. Most importantly, and I have forgotten to mention, these people are our dispatchers. They were receiving hundreds of calls at the same time. They said that the room, just every phone was blinking and lighting up for people reporting this. The dispatch center made the decision to pull out the sheriff's mobile command vehicle, which I had requested, and they said, sorry, we already have it involved. They took that to the EOC, plugged it in, if you will, and that became the central dispatch center for our event in Bunnell, with dispatchers assigned to us. So we had communication through dispatch, flawless, never had an issue. We called, they answered. And then we began that what we call windshield survey. Fire crews were on the streets reporting back damage to the best that they can. Now granted, it's dark. It was still raining a little bit. We had residents everywhere. We had down power lines everywhere. We had damage that we didn't even know we had at that point. So the crews were in there trying to get a handle on that. At the same time, a call was made to our utilities department for their assistance, and our Mr. Abreu from the building department. Nestor was on the scene by about 9:30 and had his investigators and his support team on standby ready to come in. So things were just moving along better, I will say, better than I had thought they would. Knock wood, and I'm going to say this a couple times to knock wood, no injuries, no loss of life. And that, for what we went through, was amazing in and of itself. I chose we needed a command post, so I took the library. We were going to use that as a staging point. Typically in our operations, and we set up a command structure, we start calling out those resources and bringing them in. We got to put them someplace. So we're going to use the library. Mr. Guthrie said, well, maybe we can open it up, bathroom facilities, logistical support, so we did that. So that became the forward command. About that same time, I knew this was coming, was the media was going to show up. And they started getting word, and as somebody just told me a little while ago, yeah, we were out for dinner and our phones started blowing up. Everybody in the restaurant was playing with their phone. That's a good thing. That means that people were being made aware of it. The bad part is people woke up Sunday morning and didn't have a clue. There's an interview on the radio that a gentleman says, well, yeah, it came up so fast we didn't know. The warning went out at 6:58. If you have a little red box that beeps and has that weather alert on it, you would have known there was something. You had 6 minutes. 6 minutes versus no minutes is a good thing. So we're going to push that, and we've been pushing that. We had a resident in the B section, and the husband said, turn that thing off. It always goes off and nothing ever happens. We now live in the it's not going to happen to us town that we all watch on TV. It did happen to us. So we're pushing those kinds of alerting systems that we can all purchase readily. So back to the event. We spent the rest of the night trying to get a handle on things. We were pretty confident we had no injuries. We left our fire crews, our public works crews, who by that point had found a couple areas we didn't know about. One in particular was Fulton Lane. You could not even get down the street. Crews walked house to house for us on Fulton Lane. Because of the large trees that were down. Tony Capella called me, showed up within the hour. Now granted, you're all going to say, what happened to the parade? As we canceled the parade and we evacuated that, I chose to leave Deputy Chief down there. He handled that incident. I started on the second. And so theoretically, we had two disasters, if you will, or two major events in the city going on at the same time. With the help of city staff, it is my understanding everybody was sheltered where they needed to be sheltered. That goes from some of our students to elected officials to marching bands, everybody that was at that parade. We needed to do something with them. I've been asked, well, did you have a plan? For those kinds of events, you always have the plan. And as somebody said, well, we couldn't get them to line up in their designated spot. Do you think they were going to listen to an emergency action plan? Don't know. The plan was to evacuate the park, to make the announcements. Hopefully everybody's going to get to a car and get sheltered. The Chimento building was used as a shelter, as was FPC High School, was opened up immediately for people to get into. Along with the Sheriff's Office, we were trying to get that word out. People say they never heard it, and I can believe it. During a time of panic like that, you don't hear things or you don't think rationally. We were making those attempts to get that word out for people to go where they needed to be to get out of the weather. We didn't think we were going to have that event, the tornado, but a tornado warning, don't know what's going to happen. So it's my understanding within 30 minutes of the cancellation of the parade, a little after 7, when that tornado touched down, we had everybody, and I'll say sheltered or sheltered in place or leaving the park. Leaving the park was an issue. I couldn't get out with lights on the little red car, but we finally made our way out. But from what I understand and what I've heard, it was a very orderly evacuation, if you will. Thanks to the Sheriff's Office and the pre-planning of the parade, we knew the traffic was going to go one way, everybody was going to go that way. It was just going to take a little bit more time than what we had anticipated due to the storm. So back up to the issue. We knew Belterre and Bridgehaven had been damaged, and then, as I said, Baring Place, and all those. Then we got the reports in the F. The long and the short of it was we were Saturday night and into Sunday morning trying to just get a handle on injuries in our citizens. At 6:30 Sunday morning, city staff arrived at city offices to begin the next phase, and then that next phase was damage assessment by the trained people in the building department, as well as going back to ensure that we were making accountability of our citizens and we didn't miss anything the night before. That went through all day on Sunday. The American Red Cross came in. Their disaster relief teams are with us. They're on the streets as we speak, and they actually fed all the crews that were out working on Sunday afternoon, so our hats go off to them. They were in the game real early with us. Sunday was a day of what do we need, where do we go, how do we take care of things. As most of you know, my decision was not to let the news media in Saturday night. We didn't feel it was safe. We had areas blocked off, and I stick by that. But we knew we had to get the news media, and that's what, and they're the eyes and the ears of us a lot of times to get our message out. So Sunday morning it was decided we were going to have a press conference at 9 o'clock, which we held. And then we allowed the news media to go into those areas. One thing I would say it here, and I've been saying it all along in all the interviews I've been doing, is people that don't live in the area don't need to be in the area. It was very unfortunate to see so many people that want to go up and see the destruction and the ill fate of others, that we couldn't keep people out of the streets, walking their dogs, taking pictures, these kinds of things. And the poor gentleman who totally lost his house, that's probably a picture that every resident probably halfway across the country has seen, which is an okay thing, but he's got a lot of rebuilding to do, and thanks to his neighbors, he's on his way to that, and the help with the Red Cross. So we ask our residents, when something happens, please stay out of the way. We see it on TV day in and day out of these disasters, and we don't need people getting in everybody else's way while we try to rebuild. So that was Sunday's chore, trying to get the streets open, power restored. Yesterday was a new day, and I sent an email out and told everybody to look out the window and look at the sun coming up, because it's Monday morning, we all have to go back to work. And by that I meant Monday morning was Monday morning. People had to go to work, people had jobs to do, and we all have things to do. We went back into our normal operation. Although there's 170 houses out there with significant damage, and we need to take care of those people. So we've kind of split that responsibility with city staff. Yesterday we still had inspectors out on the street. We had help from the state coming in. Investigators came in. We were very thankful, because my count as of yesterday afternoon, I understand there were 4 contractors or companies that weren't supposed to be. By that, maybe they weren't licensed, maybe they didn't have insurance, maybe, I don't know. But these folks helped our staff and got them off the street, so that our citizens are getting the quality people, the licensed people, and the right people to do the right job for them. Awful lot of people just showing up to want to help. We want to help. We want to help. On that note, I'd throw out a word of caution to all our civic groups and our churches. On Sunday afternoon, some of the churches were bringing carloads of their kids in to help clean up yards. I can't say that it's an admirable thing to do, although for insurance purposes, and I actually saw one family working on their property politely ask them to remove themselves from the area. There's a lot of insurance issues. We don't need kids running around doing these things. I know I've been called by the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. There will be assistance in places those groups can help us in later days to come. This isn't, and that's the sad part. For most people, it's a 2-day event. For the people that live in our areas, it's going to be months, if not years, before they get back on their feet. So there will be things along the way. We'll get into some of the volunteer issues and donations that's set up as well, and I'll let Mr. Guthrie talk to that on the county level. So today, yesterday we started our morning briefings, and I'll hold this up. It's called an Incident Action Plan. Our IAPs are written every day. They're given out to all the crews in the street, both electronically and anybody that needs it in hand. This IAP has all the information for anybody working the incident that they may need: phone numbers, areas, contact information, who, what, where, and when. We meet on a daily basis. They're 8 o'clock briefings every morning with the overhead team, those in command of each of their divisions. We go around the room and everybody gets a handle on what they're doing. Tree removal has been our biggest topic. How are we, what can we do? Through our Public Works crews as well as Waste Pro, pickup actually started late yesterday afternoon with Waste Pro in the streets, and now these are the affected areas. This isn't the entire city. These are the areas that were affected by the storm. Started picking up tree removal, the vegetation. We're not looking for construction removal, or this is a good time to throw out your couch or throw out the TV that doesn't work, because that's going to start happening. We're not picking those things up. Waste Pro has 3 trucks, I believe, this morning, started bright and early with the claw trucks picking up debris, and they will be going through the streets until we determine through the team that they're not needed anymore. Along with that is our Public Works team, and Tony's crews are out on the street, and they're working those issues too. We're still checking for that tree that's bent over the house and different safety issues. They're still out there and trying to report to them. Any citizen that needs help of any kind, again, is to call the city. We have our customer service reps are on our team. They're getting the information. We're giving them every morning, answering their questions. Please give us a call. We want to be there. We're not leaving. As I was telling people, we're not leaving. We're not going anywhere, and this is our job to help you get back into shape. And we've been through, unfortunately, disasters before, and we will bounce back from this. So that's basically where we are. The big question that's been arrived is we want to help, donations, where to, how to. In a minute, I'll bring up Mr. Guthrie from the county, let him tackle that, as well as the question on everybody's mind and the big word, FEMA. Is FEMA going to help? And as the mayor alluded to, there are processes and steps that we must go through. That first step was what the mayor did yesterday by signing a declaration of emergency. I've already been asked TV interviews why we took so long to implement that. Well, it wasn't that we took so long to do that. That's one of those paperwork necessities when we get to that point. If we feel we're going to be in a position of reimbursement, then we make those steps. So what we're doing with the guidance of the county's emergency management, the state's emergency management, these people have been through this numerous times. We are right on track to do what we need to do to get reimbursement, to get those funds back if we qualify. We're still in that. We're not sure. One day it looks good, one day it's something else. So it's a very lengthy, long process.
Chief, let me interject before you bring up Mr. Guthrie. City Council, Mayor, this is the other benefit of the declaring the emergency is it gives me authorization to waive some of our normal procedures. And someone said something about, well, yard debris pickup day. Every day is yard debris pickup day in the affected area. That we're not doing our normal process. It is going to cost a little money. We don't know exactly how much, but it will be a reasonable amount. But that's what we were going to do, is help that all those neighborhoods. Another good example is our building department is actually on the streets issuing permits as needed. In other words, people don't have to come in to get the permit. We will issue the permit right out there on the spot for the minor repairs and construction and work with them. So we have the boots on the ground and are taking those kind of extra steps and not going through our normal procedures right now. And we're documenting all of this, not just for the federal and state government, but for our own information. And when it's all over, we'll report to you as to what the cost is. But right now, we are instructing our crews to go get it done and assist the neighborhood. I have to add that the neighbors and the residents are great. I mean, just they're getting after it and are taking care of each other. And so I'm just very proud that we are able to help them help themselves. And they've been great to work with too on that. And we'll talk a little more after you hear about the volunteers and those type of things. But just wanted to emphasize one of the benefits of declaring an emergency. This isn't before the event emergency like an evacuation. This is an after recovery type situation.
Thank you, Mr. Land. That's what I was going to say. We're now in that recovery mode. The last thing that I wanted to bring up about the declaration is that it allows our CEMP, our City Emergency Management Plan that we have with the city that's been approved through the county and as well as the state to kick in those things, and we can issue those permits in the street, and we can be a little lax on some of those things that we need to get the infrastructure, get our citizens taken care of and back up to speed. So as Mr. Landon said, it's a wide range process that's going to keep going forward. At this time, I would bring up our newest member to the county staff. That's Mr. Kevin Guthrie. As I keep saying, welcome aboard. Welcome to Palm Coast. I'd ask Mr. Guthrie, he'll bring up some of the county issues and some of those other issues on the federal and state level that I know are on everybody's mind. Kevin?
I will say, first of all, you guys are in really great hands. You know, when I got out there, Chief Beadle had already established command as he does, as a part of any protocol does. And it was just one of those things where I just came in and said, hey, how can I support you? You know, literally I stood out there with a sheet of paper and started just documenting some things. So the initial response, in our world, what we call the initial attack was second to none. And I say that, I don't say that tongue in cheek, I say that with all sincerity. I have been on national type 1 disasters. I've represented the state of Florida as a planned section chief in BP oil spill, Hurricane Katrina, Wilma, Hurricane Andrew, all over the country. And I will put that response on Saturday night up against probably the top 3 that I've ever been to. So I want you to know that I was very, very impressed with how the city came together, and within a matter of an hour, you got crews out there cutting trees and pushing back debris. It was pretty incredible. And I mean that with all sincerity. Been all over the country, folks, from sea to shining sea, if you will, even one international deployment, and that's among some of the best work I've ever seen. So I just want to start off with that. I wanted to give you an update as to where we're at as far as the county in support of the city. Yesterday, I was in receipt from Mr. Landon and Chief Beadle, the mayor's proclamation and a declaration of local emergency. I took that last night as an emergency resolution before the Board of County Commission, who issued a supporting resolution to continue on so that we can go to that next step, which is up to the state. The state's already been made aware of our resolution at the county level and your declaration at the city level, so all of those hoops are being jumped through that are required to be done. I'll just run down a very quick situational report from my side of the house. As you may have seen me out Sunday in the Sheriff's Office helicopter from St. John's, and if you guys have any contact with St. John's County Sheriff, I would really appreciate you just sending him an email or something to say, hey, thanks for letting us use the helicopter, because obviously you guys know that the Flagler County helicopter is down for avionics upgrade. But I did fly over it, and the National Weather Service Jacksonville issued their interim report on this incident. Again, the chief said that it was a EF1 tornado that touched down. What a lot of people may not have seen in that report is that there was over 1.5 miles of continuous destruction through the B section and into the F section. A lot of people think that that stopped in the B section towards the western portion, but believe it or not, if you go about a mile north of Palm Coast exit on I-95, you will see where the tornado literally cut through the middle of the interstate. And a lot of people don't know that, and then continue right on into the F section before it bounced back up, if you will. So we had, from start to finish, from the Espanola area all the way out to the Hammock Dunes area, it ended up being over 9 miles of touchdown. And a lot of people, that's been lost, if you will. So this was a EF1, and it was significant. You know, it really was a significant event. So I encourage you to read that report. Again, it's the National Weather Service Jacksonville. My planner, who is here, has a copy of that if anybody, and I will make sure that Mr. Landon has it available as well. But here's where we're at from a county perspective. Again, we did issue our resolution last night. We are in a partial activation at the county level, which is we will take our EOC, we've already done that, to a level 2 activation with the following components activated. Obviously, City of Palm Coast is handling the majority of these positions, and a lot of that's, again, a misnomer. It doesn't have to be county staff in that activation. We are doing this with city staff. So command is being run by, as you've heard, Chief Beadle. Public Information Officer, Cindy Lane, in a joint, what we would refer to as a joint information center with the Sheriff's Office, Commander Weber, and then also the County Public Information Officer has been in support of me, Carl Laundrie. But the face of this event and the voice of this event is the City of Palm Coast Public Information Officer when it comes to public information. I think that's important that we point that out. Operations is obviously being run by the City of Palm Coast. Everybody, if you will, is all in when it comes to operations right now for the City of Palm Coast, and y'all have that covered, including divisions, groups, and assignments there. The planning role, one of the things very early on that I spoke with Mr. Landon yesterday morning, I said, listen, I said, operations, you're all in. One of the things that we've got to get going, though, is the documentation of this incident so that we can make those next steps in the process. You're all into that. I will take on that burden of getting with your staff, getting the documentation, categorizing it, summarizing it, filing it, so that we can move to the next level. And yesterday morning at about 11:30-ish, we set that plan into action. I will say, as part of putting a face with that, my plan section chief, who's sitting behind me, Jennifer Stagg, she's actually going to be operating as a documentation unit leader for the county and for the city, of compiling all that information and making it available to all sources, including the state and federal government. Addition to the documentation unit, we obviously, within the City of Palm Coast, have the damage assessment unit. And then, most importantly, I think what's centric to everybody's minds right now is the volunteer donations management. I did last night activate, or I say last night, yesterday afternoon after our meeting at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I activated our volunteer donations management group within the EOC, and Susie Gamblane is our coordinator there. She is now the official face of volunteer donations management in Flagler, or I'm sorry, Flagler County proper and for the City of Palm Coast. So, Mayor, your wife should not have to field too many more of those phone calls. And since we do have news media present in the room, I'll just go ahead and say this. Any volunteer donations management that anybody is interested in giving is, of course, area code 386-597-2950. That's 386-597-2950, and that's Flagler Volunteer Services. In support of Flagler Volunteer Services, Sherry Taylor at the state level of Florida Volunteer Services, they are poised and ready to assist in any way, shape, form, or fashion that they can. So what I want to talk to you a little bit right now as far as volunteer donations and management goes is a little concept of operations, if you will. Very early on, Ray Parkhurst called me up in this event. In fact, he called me the night of the storm at about 11:30 at night, and he says, Kevin, what can we do to help? And I said, Ray, meet me at 6:30 tomorrow morning at the City of Palm Coast, and we'll get you involved. He was there. He was actually there early, which I don't. That's just the nature of what he does.
Red Cross, you didn't mention.
I'm sorry.
Who he's with.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Manager. Ray Parkhurst is our local chapter designee for American Red Cross. He was here. He got started, and he has been the face of volunteer, if you will, in those communities that have been affected. He's gone and done door-to-door assessments, spoke with people, providing services, seeing where the gaps are at, reporting back to us where the gaps are at. So we are, what we've done as far as a concept of operations, and I mentioned this morning in our briefing, is Mr. Parkhurst and the American Red Cross are going to stay that voice, if you will, or that face in the community, since he's meeting with everybody on a daily basis, and then he's going to communicate those things back to Susie on any gaps that the American Red Cross cannot fill. And then we'll fill that with local Flagler Volunteer Service folks, and we're going to look for ways to get those who have already requested a volunteer, such as Matanzas High School wants to go out there and do some type of project. We're going to make that happen. So the people here locally, there's going to be the American Red Cross on it, but as in the coming days, you're going to see a local face out there doing some work and things like that. So all of those folks that have contacted your wife and others, we're going to make sure that they get plugged in some way, somehow. All right. Beyond that, I just wanted to kind of give a real quick report from the county level and then my interaction with the state level in reference to funding programs that may or may not be available. One of the things that we're having to do right now is we have to get this incident documented and find out how much money has been spent roughly in what we refer to in the FEMA world and the emergency management world as Category A and Category B expenses. Category A expenses are those that are debris-related removal cost, including personnel, equipment, tonnage, all that stuff. And then Category B is protective measures. Any type of protective measure we did, whether that's in, if it's from city finance to firefighters out on the street, any type of protective measure we took at any level, we have to document and get that. Those are the two figures right now that the state of Florida is waiting on me, because there is a outside remote chance, and I don't want to take up a whole lot of time doing a training, but I think it's important for everybody to have a clear understanding of how the process works. Our current threshold in Palm Coast and Flagler County is somewhere around, and I'm going to look back to Jennifer just to double check myself, $335,000-ish. Once we meet that level in those Category A, B, and all the way up to G and H levels, then we have met our threshold. We can declare a state of emergency. That's right where we believe we're at. That's what we've done up to the state of Florida. Now, the state of Florida's threshold is much higher than that. It's somewhere in the upper $60 million area. So you can have a situation where a county meets a threshold and the state does not. And typically on a day-to-day basis, that would not warrant a federal declaration. However, I say this, there is an outside, very small percentage remote possibility, because of a precedent that has been set in the past, that if it's of such economic impact to the city and the county, that we can be considered by the federal government for reimbursement, even though the state did not meet their threshold. All right? So I'm not saying we're going to get funds, but I will say the state of Florida, Leo Lachette at the state of Florida Bureau Chief for Response, he has committed to us in running through the process, documenting the process, and then reporting our information up to the next level, so that there very well may be something we can do there. Probably more appropriately is that we will qualify for is what is referred to as the SBA plan, all right, that's small business assistance, okay? Now, I know it says small business assistance, and somebody's going to say that's listening in right now, well, we didn't have any businesses affected. Once again, it's kind of FEMA, and I'll just leave it at that. It's a misnomer. What we can do is, so long as we have a 40% diminution in value of 25 homes in the affected areas, then, and there's a couple other hoops that we have to jump through, but that's the meat of it. And those property values include not only just the box, but it also includes screen enclosures, 40% diminution in value of the fair market value of that property, 25 homes, then we will most likely be opened up for SBA loans. So what does that mean? It may very well mean that our homeowners in certain situations that meet the 40% diminution in value and so on, will be eligible for up to $30,000 in loans from the government to, in essence, do a stopgap, if you will, to kind of help them through this process, because many times insurance agents and payments and all that get tied up for months. But we don't want that to happen. We want people to start recovering, and that's the phase we're in right now, is recovery. So that's a little bit about where we're at in the process. We are diligently moving forward with that. I do know for a fact, we got it confirmed last night about 5:30-ish, Chief Beadle and I were together, that the FEMA SBA team has been mobilized. They will be here on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. So Thursday morning at 9 a.m., people in the affected areas will start seeing vests that say FEMA, SBA, on them. As a part of that team, there will also be members from the state of Florida. There will also be at least one member from local damage assessment. There will be one member from the property appraiser's office. And then there's also going to be, and again, I think Chief Beadle publicly, this is a very good training opportunity for my county side of the house. And he has agreed to let one person from the county tag along just for the training and education purpose of, if this ever happens again, at least somebody's got some idea of what goes on at that level. So FEMA damage assessment, or I'm sorry, not damage assessment, but FEMA SBA teams will be here starting Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. So people in the community can and will see those folks moving house to house, doing it yet again another assessment. But that's what they got to do. They got to take what our damage assessment teams have provided, go back behind them, verify, and say, yes, we agree with this, yes, we agree with this. And once we get to the level, once they get to that 25 homes that meet the 40%, they won't go any farther. because they'll say, yes, SBA is now available, then they'll bring in probably a bus, an SBA bus, plant at dead center and start processing people. So this process is going to take a little while, but we will see the fruits of that process starting on Thursday at 9 a.m. So with that being said, I'll maybe entertain questions right now that the council might have.
I would like to add one more thing before we go into questions. One of the processes we go through is we discuss every morning what we call unmet needs. You know, what we've heard from the residents is that they feel like a need is not being met. And the only thing that our crews, and in this case Red Cross, has indicated that they've heard is the response from insurance companies. Not a surprise. So this morning, I authorized having one or two of our customer service people actually get out of the office and go onto the street and go door to door with Red Cross representatives, and anybody that feels like they are not getting a response from their insurance company, that if they would like us to, we will right there on the spot call their carriers on behalf of the city. And I told them to use my name and say that we need your help and we need it quickly, and see if we can't get some response from insurance company as quickly as possible. And then also, Mr. Guthrie and I will contact the state insurance commissioner's office to make sure that they know that, you know, little old Palm Coast here does exist, and that we do need some help, and make sure that the insurance companies are not ignoring us. So that's another little extra that we're going to go through to try to assist people in getting the private sector out here and responding as quickly as possible.
Mr. Lannon, will this city person be well identified?
Absolutely. We'll have probably emergency vest on, ID, be with Red Cross representative that's already contacted them to make sure they know that this is an official person and not just...
Having been through more than a few tornadoes in my home state of Missouri, I can tell you that looting is a very serious thing, and I know that the chief and the sheriff are looking for that. So I would say that anybody that's in a neighborhood that they don't live in is probably going to be subject to investigation.
Absolutely. We covered that also.
Yes.
And made it very clear.
Yeah, just one more point to that. I spoke with Under Sheriff Rick Staley via email last night, and he, I told him, continue the meter running, if you will, on the protective measures, because we're going to cover that until the last boot is off the ground, and when we are fully finished with this recovery phase and social restoration phase, which may take weeks and months. If he assigns an extra deputy every day to the B section or whatever the case would be, that's a protective measure that until the mayor and the county say we're back underneath a normal operation, however long that may take, then those costs associated with that will be, we'll keep documenting them and sending them up the chain to see what we can get reimbursed on.
Let me piggyback on that too. Our requirements is the declaration of emergency is for 7 days only. After that time, the mayor can either let it expire or extend it for another 7 days. Ultimately, there will be another proclamation by the mayor declaring the emergency over, so it is formally then over. And we will work with the team to determine that and keep the mayor up to date as to where we are and what we need from that declaration standpoint. But that's how that process works.
Anybody have any questions of me?
I got Mr. Guthrie, a big wow factor. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
You've been very refreshing, and it was great to see how you've worked with our team. Everybody, I mean, just I've been through a number of these in my career, and this is the way it's supposed to work. From the sheriff's office to everybody. I mean, I can't name them all. But Mr. Guthrie, being new to the community, it was welcome to Palm Coast, but he has shown his worth already.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that compliment. Thank you.
He may be new to the community, but we've unfortunately worked other events through the years, and he is a welcome asset to this community, and I'm very glad he was standing next to me Saturday night at 7:30. With that, we're back to normal operations, whatever that means. We are currently in the streets. Our crews are still going through the streets. Sheriff's Office, as has been said, is still on the streets. As I said, our team, our overhead, the top of the lists are here. If anybody had any questions, Sheriff's Department, I brought Deputy Chief Forte in. Senior Commander Carmen's here. We're here to entertain any questions, or Mr. Mayor, we'll turn it back over to you.
Do we want to hear from the sheriff's representative?
It's okay by me.
Bob, do you have anything
Commander?
you'd like to add?
Just that the experience was very stressful for one, I'm sure for the residents, but we really appreciate the cooperation that we had from the city government, from the city fire department. It was terrific. And also from the county emergency management. Being a resident of the community, I found an outstanding response all the way across the board, and I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, I would also want to stress, outside of the affected area, it's business as usual.
Absolutely.
We have the resources to take care of the rest of the community. Trash pickup will be regular. The rest of the community should not see anything unusual. Obviously, maybe emails will be answered a little slower as, we're taking care of priorities and those type of things. But as far as the services out there, we are business as usual.
I would thank the city of Benel, the city of Flagler Beach, and the county. We threw everything we had it from the city, our city standpoint. But as I say time and time again, life goes on and other events happen. We had 4 or 5 calls during that initial response that we needed to rely on the surrounding municipalities to help us. And that's what our interlocal agreements and our closest unit responses and all the things we talk about for years and years. And it worked. We had other units in the city covering, protecting our citizens while we were still gearing up and getting things. So I'd like to thank them as well as we go through this. Mr. Mayor, anything else?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. Keep up the good work. I just have to mention, a year or so ago, when the city was considering bringing median landscape maintenance in-house, we talked about fiscal savings, which have been realized. But I also commented at the time and subsequently that there's a collateral benefit. By having that additional crew in-house, we have that much more capability of responding in times of emergency. I hope that wasn't prophetic, but that certainly was the case. Council members, any comments on this issue? I want to thank you for your presence, your participation. City Council was on scene at the City Hall, ready to do whatever they needed to do, getting the briefings so that they could correspond with their constituents. I think all in all, it was just a very, very well-handled event. Let's never see one again. Agenda item number 3, an ordinance with a future land use amendment for 9.8 acres. Mr. Reichman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, the next 3 items are second readings of ordinances. Agenda item number 3 is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the City of Palm Coast 2035 Comprehensive Plan, as previously amended pursuant to Section 163 Florida statutes. This amends the future land use map, or FLUME, designation for 9.8 more or less acres of certain real property from agricultural and timberlands, which is a Flagler County designation, to mixed-use city designation, as described in more detail in the legal description, which is an exhibit to this ordinance. This provides for conflicts, ratification of prior acts, codification, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Landon.
Mayor, City Council, this is second reading of a land use we call housekeeping or cleanup. You've heard the presentation. There is nothing new. Jose is here to answer any questions. There's no development potential, obviously, in this, and so we believe it's ready for final adoption.
Council questions? Seeing none, we'll open the meeting to the public. Any from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 3? Seeing no one, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. Come back to City Council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
I have a question, Your Honor.
Please.
Are we considering items 3 and 4 together?
Procedurally, we have to take them as separate items.
Okay.
Right.
Then I move to approve item 3.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor DiLorenzo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Mayor Nets.
Yes.
Mayor, this motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4, an ordinance relating to the same parcel of property, but this is a zoning map amendment. I believe this is quasi judicial?
This is quasi-judicial.
So
Yes,
are there
Mayor.
any ex parte communications that need to be disclosed? Hearing none, Mr. Reichman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember McGuire, this is the corresponding zoning map amendment to the item which you just approved. This is the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code, amending the official zoning map for certain real property consisting of 9.8 more or less acres, more particularly described in Exhibit A, from agriculture, which is a Flagler County designation, to general commercial, or COM2, which is the City of Palm Coast designation, providing for conflicts, severability, and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Landon?
Mayor, City Council, this is the zoning, corresponding zoning to the comprehensive plan amendment for the cemetery property. Once again, second reading, nothing new. We believe it's ready for final adoption.
Council questions? Seeing none, anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 4? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion meeting. Back to council. Questions, comments, or motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor DiLorenzo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Mayor Nets.
Yes.
Mayor, this motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 5, an ordinance with a zoning map amendment for the FDOT way station area. Mr. Reichman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and this is quasi-judicial as well, so if there will be any ex parte communications since the first reading, those should be disclosed.
Are there any ex parte communications that need to be disclosed?
No, sir.
Hearing none, please go on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code, amending the official zoning map for certain real property consisting of 33.8 more or less acres as depicted in Exhibit A from future development district and residential commercial, which are the Flagler County designations, to public and semi-public, which are the City of Palm Coast designations, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date.
Mr. Landon?
This is another cleanup matter. Once again, it's the FDOT way station, so there's no development potential, just cleaning up our zoning map. This is a second reading, nothing new. We believe it's ready for final adoption.
Council questions?
I'm curious, Your Honor, I know this is the way station on I-95, but the way station that's out on US 1 near the city offices where Tony works, is that in the city, and how is it zoned?
It's in the city, and Jose, do you know how?
It's in the city and it's within.
It's not an issue, is it, Jose?
No, sir, it's in the city, and what they're doing is that they're actually building that within the available right-of-way on US 1.
So we're changing the zoning to show the one on I-95 to be the same zoning as the one on US 1?
The difference here is that the one on US 1 is within the existing right-of-way and therefore does not have a land use map designation or zoning designation. It probably so happened that where the way station is on I-95 was at one time part of a larger parcel.
Oh, okay.
And so it does have a land use designation and a zoning designation in turn.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
The cameras on the US 1 across from that landscaping company, what is that arrangement there?
In terms of, is it the zoning?
I know what
That's-
a way station is, but what does that, what?
I believe that's part of the operation for the way station. It picks up on,
Yeah, Jose, I probably can answer
Oh, sure.
that better, because I was very much involved. As council may have recalled, FDOT a few years ago came and said they wanted to replace a way station on US 1, and they wanted to put one of these big ones in the middle of the median, or, in the median on US 1, there by the Vertigo Nursery. We objected to that, along with Bunnell, because of the impact, and proposed to them that in today's world, a virtual way station would be a lot more efficient. And virtual way stations are exactly what you see there. They're cameras, but what they really are, and I don't understand the technology, but when a truck drives by, they can tell whether or not that truck is overloaded. Amazing, or they think it's overloaded, or it hasn't been weighed. And then, if need be, they can use the existing weigh station there on US 1 to actually do the verification of the weighing. So that is in lieu of them spending literally tens of millions of dollars and putting something that was going to be disruptive to the commercial access on US 1. They did the same thing, they're doing the same thing on I-95 ramps. I know we many times been accused that we have red light cameras on the ramps at I-95. No, those are same concept of trying to catch the trucks that are avoiding the weigh station because they know they're overweight. We have, there's a plus to some of us access, but it's also easier for the truck drivers to avoid the weigh station because US 1 crosses 95 twice. So there's always that, what truckers would do is they would exit at one end of US 1, use US 1 to avoid the 95 weigh station, and then get back on. Well, they figure out ways of avoiding also the US 1 weigh station by getting off at, say, State Road 100, going Belle Terre back to Palm Coast Parkway or maybe Old Kings Road. This just more and more ways of trying to make sure the trucks are in compliance.
Is that southbound traffic or is it both ways?
Both ways.
Both ways.
So, has nothing to do with this zoning case whatsoever, but anytime we talk about weigh stations and those virtual weigh stations, always a question. So I'll always try to get that word out. Appreciate the question.
Other council questions? Seeing none, open the meeting to the public, and for the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 5. Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion meeting, go back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
Move approval of agenda item number 5.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor DiLorenzo.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferguson.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Mayor Nets.
Yes.
Mayor, this motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 6, a resolution approving a contract with P&S Paving for construction of the Palm Coast Parkway 6-laning project. Mr. Land.
You know, this project actually got started before we were ever a city. You know, it's been literally a decade in the process, and I think the title right there that Carl puts up on the screen, construction phase, is we've all been looking forward to, but when it happens, I don't know how much we're going to be looking forward to, well, you're going to be looking more forward to the completion of the construction. Mayor, this is actually a presentation. We'll cover items 6 through 9, all of them tied into the Palm Coast Parkway widening. It'll be a very large project. You've seen presentations on this numerous times, but I think it's important for the community to see this as many times as possible. So Carl is going to do the full presentation as to what this item and the next few items are all about. Carl, please take it from here.
Okay, good morning. Here we go. All right, we'll get started here. I'd first like to start off by just giving an overview of the project itself. The project limits, or the extent of the project, is from the western end of the project where Dunkin' Donuts is located, and on the east end it goes to Florida Park Drive. It's roughly 1.25 miles long. And what are some of the benefits of the project? We kind of summarized here some of the main key points of the project. You know, obviously it's going to reduce congestion. The project basically entails the widening of the existing roadway. It adds an outside lane, goes from 4 lanes to 6 lanes, and that will increase the level of service and it reduces travel times along the roadway. In addition, it's going to improve safety for vehicles and pedestrians, as well as potential for accidents. It improves the mobility for emergency vehicles. It improves the westward hurricane evacuation operations. As part of the project, it's also going to provide an 8-foot sidewalk along the roadway and the bridge in both directions to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists. We'll be adding dedicated turn lanes throughout the project, providing concurrent left turns at Cypress Point intersection, Old Kings Road. Concurrent left turn lanes, that means the opposing traffic can both turn left at the same time. That gets more cars through the intersection, so there's less backup. It basically gets you through that intersection quicker. We'll be extending and modifying some of the existing street lighting and enhancing the landscaping and converting some of the irrigation system over to reuse.
When you say concurrent left turns at Cypress Point and Old Kings Road, are you saying that when they're turning left at Old Kings Road, they're also turning left at Cypress Point?
No, it's the opposite. So if you're on Palm Coast Parkway at Cypress Point, if you're going eastbound and turning left onto Boulder Rock, and if you're going westbound, turning left onto Cypress Point, you can turn left at the same time. Those two left turn lanes will operate concurrently.
Gotcha.
And the same is true if you're on Cypress Point, turning left onto Palm Coast Parkway, and Boulder Rock, turning left onto Palm Coast Parkway. Those left turn lanes will run concurrently. Old Kings Road intersection, the Palm Coast Parkway operations will run concurrently, but the Old Kings Road, until Old Kings Road is modified in the future, heading south and north, those left turn lanes will not operate concurrently at this time, but they will in the future. Along the project route, trees have been an issue throughout the project. We are removing trees along the project to make it happen. The city has moved ahead with relocating some of the trees that were identified to be removed as part of the project and relocated them to some of our city properties. One photo here is Indian Trail Sports Complex. We lined them along the roadway. This, also assisted with keeping cars from some of the major events from parking on the sidewalks and paths where they shouldn't be parking. Also, we transplanted some, relocated them to Waterfront Park along the waterway here. This here is just a real quick summary, just trying to show you where there's lots of phases to a project. It's many years long. We're at the construction phase end. There are a few things that were already put into place to get this phase moving forward. This is a DOT project. There's some funding for this phase, which is in their budget. Agreements between the city and county and DOT have been processed. At the county board meeting last night, they actually approved a supplemental agreement with the DOT to provide some additional funding on the project. And this project is part of our CIP. It's in our timeline to be constructed this year, starting the first quarter of this upcoming calendar year. And it will be expected to be complete by the end of 2015. There are 4 items on the agenda. Item 6 is the construction contract. It's with P&S Paving Incorporated. They were the low bidder, roughly $10.5 million. There's a contingency as well at 10% of the project cost. That is item 6. Item 7 is the construction engineering contract. That is a firm. City went through a selection process, ranked various proposals on qualifications. Then we negotiate a scope and fee with the top-ranked firm, and they will be providing grant compliance to make sure we comply with all the grant terms and conditions from DOT. They will be performing inspections, testing on-site, and overseeing the contractor's operations. So that their contract amount is in here for close to $1.2 million, as well as a contingency for some additional services that may be necessary throughout the project. Item number 8 is a change order with the design contract. That is the engineer record on the project. They will be involved kind of on an as-needed basis through the construction phase. They will be performing shop drawing reviews. That's to review submittals from the contractor to verify they're in compliance with the design. They will be responding to any request for information from the contractor that the CEI firm cannot answer or needs assistance from, or if there's some design clarifications or modifications that are necessary that may come up, they'll be there to assist with those types of services. And item number 9 is an FPL streetlight agreement. There's actually 2 agreements. Along the project route, there are some streetlights that are currently city-owned that need to be relocated as part of the project or removed. We have a cost from FPL to perform those services, and then we are extending and adding some additional streetlights, and we have a separate agreement for those new streetlights to be added to the project for the cost here close to $400,000. So those are the 4 items on the project.
Carl,
Yes.
on landscaping, will there be any landscaping in that area, approaching the bridge and leaving the bridge?
Yeah, there's landscaping will be continuous from one end of the project to the next. As you know, Palm Coast Parkway has a lot of existing landscaping. You know, the design process, we tried to minimize the disruption as best we could. We are enhancing and adding to the landscaping where it's being, I guess, modified. There are some areas, like on the east end of the project, close to Dunkin' Donuts, where there was a turn lane at one time that was blocked off, and now it's just asphalt in the median. That's being removed. It's going to be, you know, landscaped. There's areas like that that'll be enhanced.
Good.
This slide here shows the project funding. There's 3 main sources of funding on the project. The primary source is FDOT. They budgeted a little over $10 million for the project per this last supplemental agreement, and we are using all those funds are being tied to the contracts that are here for approval. There's a city utility fund. The city utility relocations necessary for the project are not participatory by DOT, so we are funding those with city utility funds. And the balance of the contracts are street improvement funds. We budgeted close to $2.5 million, and we're using about roughly $2.25 million for these contracts. So overall, this summarizing, we budgeted $13,788,000 roughly, and contracts here for approval are just over $13.5 million.
Carl, I have a question. Last night at the county commission, they approved a supplemental agreement to authorize realignment of funds in the existing LAP agreement to the tune of $1,574,058. Where does that fund plug in here?
This here was $1.5 million less prior to that agreement. This here includes that additional funding of that $1.5 million.
Okay, so your FDOT funds includes county funds?
Well, those aren't county funds. Those are, that supplemental agreement that was approved by the county is a modification to the agreement between the county and DOT, adding DOT funding to the project.
All right. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's the end
Council
of the
questions?
presentation.
Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Carl, I see in the construction contract that there's liquidated damages if they go over, if they take too long. Are there performance rewards if they complete the project early?
No, we do not have those built into this contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ferguson.
Carl, I think most residents are concerned about the project as it relates to the daily flow of traffic. What can you talk about in terms of agreements that the construction company have made as to minimize the flow of traffic during the construction period, since it's almost a 2-year project?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things that we have put into place. One, the project is a phased project. There's 3 primary phases of the project. The first phase will be along the south side of the roadway. So right now, the roadway will maintain 2 lanes throughout the project route. Any long period lane closures will occur at nighttime. But the first phase is basically adding the outside lane along the south side of the project. It's phase 1. Phase 2 will be adding the outside lane along the north side of the project route. And then phase 3 will be performing the work within the median, extending some turn lanes and doing the work in the inside lanes. There's some work obviously at the on-ramps. That work will more than likely, some of it can occur during the days. That's not going to affect the on-ramps, but work that will be performed at night. So there will be some night operations, but Primarily, we are phase the project and try to maintain the 2 lanes of existing traffic that exists today in operation during construction.
Carl, when you say 2 lanes, you mean 2 lanes both directions, right?
2 lanes both directions. And as an aside on this, with the CEI firm, the part of the services they are providing is a public information, public outreach. There obviously will be a website, project-specific website. There'll be a 24/7, 800 phone number that people can contact. There'll be social media. There'll be lots of public interface and noticing of what is happening out there to keep the public informed.
Mr. Lewis?
Carl, just piggybacking on Mr. Ferguson's question, the east bound lane as it forks near, yeah. The McDonald's restaurant on the corner there has a traffic problem. Will that be cured by this? Because now the traffic backs up in the right lane on the turn lane as people go in for their early morning coffee and that sort of thing, and it backs up onto the Parkway.
Yeah, what is, obviously, that's one of the areas we will have a dedicated right turn lane onto Old Kings Road, so it will not be a shared, movement through lane and turn lane. All the turn lanes, I'm not 100% confident, but I'd say a lot of the turn lanes that exist today are being extended from what is currently there. So that, we are not doing any work on Old Kings Road at this time. That work will occur in the future. So will we help the problem? Yes, because we'll be doing some modifications on Palm Coast Parkway with the turn lanes and the through lane movement. Will we help, can there be some improvements on Old Kings Road? There will be in the future, but not at this time.
Okay.
For years, I've been begging FP&L to investigate LED street lighting. We have that pilot project on the west side of Palm Coast Parkway. A, have we had any feedback from FPL on the return on investment for LED lighting? And B, is there any possibility that the lights we're adding will be LED lights?
I don't have an update on the current program now. I know it's not offered yet. I know it's still in their study. I know we're one of the 3 test sites. The new lights are not going to be LED. They're going to match the existing street lights that are in place, because there are some where we're adding some in between existing street lights. So we're being consistent in working with what we have now.
Okay.
They still are not offering them. It's still a pilot program.
Yes, they're still telling me that they have too many in their backlog in their warehouses. It's strange. Okay, any other council questions? If not, we're going to open the meeting to the public. There are 4 related items, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You're welcome to comment on them individually or one comment at the beginning on the entire group, whichever you prefer. Anyone wish to be heard on item 6 or 7, 8, and 9? Seeing no one, yes, sir.
Louis McCarthy, Palm Coast. What's the time frame on all of this? Thank you.
Next speaker. Seeing no one approach the podium, we close the public portion of the meeting. Carl, time frame.
Time frame. We are looking to start construction here. Probably it'd be February timeframe by the time the contract's executed and actually you see something happen on the ground. The construction contract is roughly, we're looking to be complete by the end of calendar year 2015.
So not quite 2 years.
Right, not quite 2 years.
Be nice if it could be less. Seeing no one else approach the podium, we close public portion meeting. Go back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion on agenda item number, Mr. Reichman, should we take them individually?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Agenda item number 6.
Move approval?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 7, since there was no public comment on the package, are there questions on agenda item number 7? Hearing none. Anything from the public? No. Is there a motion on agenda item number 7?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries that objection. Agenda item number 8, council questions? Anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 8? Seeing no one. Back to city council. Questions, motion?
Move approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 9, any questions? Anyone from the public on agenda item number 9? Back to council. Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries that objection. Now, let's get off of that and get on to something else. Agenda item number 10, a resolution approving a contract for construction of the Bulldog Drive improvement projects.
Mayor, City Council,
Mr.
this is another one we've been working on for many years. We've given the title Bulldog Drive, but it's actually much more than that. It has to do a lot with drainage improvements in the area of Bulldog and State Road 100. It includes improvements on State Road 100. It includes changing traffic flow at the high school site. So Carl is going to kind of highlight all those changes and where we are. And once again, it's nice to see construction phase since we've been talking about it for so long. So Carl, take it from here.
Carl, are you going to consolidate 10 through 15 in your presentation?
Correct, this presentation covers all those items. This here, I have an overview map as well regarding this project. In yellow, I kind of highlighted the work area. This line here, this is State Road 100, and this is Bulldog Drive leading up here, and the south end is the airport. And this area here is the FPC High School site. So along 100, we are doing some improvements basically along the entire frontage of the high school site and extending east of Bulldog beyond that a few hundred yards. On the high school site, we are doing some modifications to the entry, some reworking of the bus transportation, their whole traffic circulation system. So we are getting into the school site. We're also getting into dealing with the bus circulation into the back area of the school site. And this area here along the pond area is where the stormwater discharges. The stormwater in this area is a large area. It covers the high school site, it covers Bulldog, it covers part of Midway, and the discharge point is on the western end here. So we are doing some work along the discharge point of the property. And obviously, we're extending up Bulldog Drive onto the school site and all the way north to, we get to where the road improvements end at the line of town center. And again here, I've summarized some of the project benefits. Obviously, some of the key factors are stormwater improvements. You know, right now there's flooding, especially at the school site. It is a low area, and that's part of the project is to correct that or improve that stormwater system. We're improving safety for vehicles and pedestrians. How are we doing that? We have some items here. One is we're shifting the main high school entrance west to alleviate the backups on 100 into the Bulldog Drive SR 100 intersection. We're providing right turn lanes on SR 100 onto Bulldog Drive, as well as both high school entrances. We are providing a turn lane on Bulldog Drive for left turns into the high school site, and we are providing a sidewalk along the west side of Bulldog Drive from 100, connecting up with the existing sidewalk in town center. Another major item is we are doing some reconstruction of the Bulldog SR 100 intersection. The existing string pole signal is being replaced with the new mass arm pole. And this intersection is going to have the ultimate improvements, the configuration at that intersection. That includes a right turn lane on Bulldog Drive to turn onto SR 100, as well as 2 left turn lanes to turn left onto SR 100. And we are extending the left turn lane on 100 to make a left turn onto Bulldog Drive into town center. This project as well will extend the existing street lighting to 100 and enhance the landscaping and connect up with the reuse irrigation system. And we have discussed this project in the past, the phasing of the project, what are the short-term versus long-term needs. At the time, we summarized, the short-term needs. There's currently safety issues out there, the school circulation, the intersection and turning movements at SR 100 and Bulldog, the stormwater issues, the flooding of the school, the Bulldog Drive area is an issue, and what are the long-term needs or concerns? Basically, the long-term needs additional roadway capacity. That is the 4-laning of Bulldog Drive, and right now, growth's not occurring, not as anticipated, so that was moved into looking at how we move forward with the project. And at the time, we discussed phasing the project, and that's how we moved forward, and that's what we're proposing here today. Phase 1 basically addresses the current safety and stormwater issues. Those are the primary concerns. The short-term needs, the school circulation, the intersection and turning movements, the stormwater issues, and then Phase 2, which addresses the capacity issues, the 4-laning of Bulldog, will come at a later date to be determined.
Carl, I have a question.
Yes.
Would construction in the area behind, I should say, north of the, of FPC, or Florida Palm Coast High School, would construction in that area, such as up near the Chimento building or around that general vicinity, would that exacerbate stormwater issues at the high school?
Yes and no. The town center now, there currently is a drainage ditch here. Town center is on its own basin. The school ponds do not take on town center ponds, but right now there is a ditch between the school and the target site that town center drains into. And the school has a weir, an outfall, that discharges into the same ditch. So
if I built a strip mall up in town center, and it wouldn't affect what's going on at FPC?
right now, it probably would. With this proposed solution, we are looking to eliminate that. Because currently now, the discharge point is at a low elevation that it takes on water into the high school site from the ditch. We are looking at building that discharge point up and putting in a pump station to pump this water off of the school site into the ditch. So we're basically eliminating any backflow into the school site.
So this project then, if I can encapsulate what you're saying, looks out and says, if something like this happens, we're going to do enough not only to take care of the current situation, but also to protect against possible future activity in that area. Is that correct statement?
Correct. Yeah, the school stormwater system is all part of a master stormwater plan study and model that was done with Town Center. When we went through our permitting process, we actually used the Town Center stormwater model and worked with the Water Management District as well as the Town Center engineer, the school engineers. You know, lots of parties were involved in that stormwater system. And yes, it does project or protect us from future improvements. Those are built into that model.
I need to stress, though, that the school is in a low point. It's like a bowl, is the way the engineers describe it. And when we have a major event, there's going to, the parking lot's going to get flooded. I mean, it's just, I can almost assure you of that. But right now, what we're finding is even minor events, it's getting flooded, and that shouldn't be happening. So this will minimize, well, it will reduce the amount of times the parking lot gets flooded, and then when it does get flooded, it will minimize it, and also, you know, reduce the amount of time that they're having a problem. Parking lot being flooded is not a big deal, except for if it stays there for days and you got 4 inches of water that you're walking through to get to school, that's a big deal. So this isn't going to solve the bowl problem, but it sure will help it.
No, and I take your point, Mr. Lennon. All I'm saying is that I don't want to sit down 5 years from now and be talking about Bulldog Drive again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what the goal is, and that's why we're doing this so comprehensive. It's one of the reasons why it's taken so long, is it's a lot of moving parts, and we've tried to address all of those in a comprehensive fashion.
Carl, is it safe to assume that that pumping station will have a backup generator?
Yes, backup pump and generator.
Okay, very good.
Bunch of guys with oars.
This here gets into the timeline for the project. City staff put together a timeline, presented this last fall, basically just shows the design wrapping up, this calendar year, and then moving into the new calendar year is when construction will begin. So basically, the project is on schedule moving forward. We have several items here. Item 10 for city action today. Item 10 is the construction contract. P&S Paving was the low bidder at roughly $4.25 million. We have a contingency of $200,000 for the construction phase, and is item 10. Item 11 on the agenda is construction inspection CEI services. This is for a change order. Stantec is the design of record. We already have them contracted to do some of the shop drawing reviews and RFIs and some of those other items I discussed with the Palm Coast Parkway project. This here is going to provide inspection and testing staff to be on site. This will provide a full-time inspector to monitor and keep the project moving along. Obviously, this project schedule-wide is very sensitive. It really affects the school operations. So this will provide a change order to provide that additional staff and services from Stantec at roughly $263,000. Item 12 on the agenda is a right-of-way map for Bulldog Drive. I marked up the graphic that's in the packet here just to kind of summarize what exists there today. This blue item in the center here is the existing Bulldog Drive right-of-way. The item in pink, that is the current school property that is being deeded over to the city for additional right-of-way to make the ultimate improvements of the 4-laning of Bulldog Drive. And then the two items in orange are additional right-of-way that's needed from city-owned properties for the ultimate configuration of the Bulldog Drive project. This is, I should have mentioned, this is SR 100 this end and Bulldog Drive leading up into Town Center on this end. So basically this time is just to approve a right-of-way map identifying the right-of-way area for the Bulldog project. Item 13 is for an FPL streetlight agreement. This is a approval to negotiate and execute an agreement with FPL and not to exceed an amount of $300,000. It's to provide the additional street lighting from 100 up to where the town center lighting currently exists. Item 14 is for 8 FPL easements along the city-owned properties on the east side of Bulldog Drive. We are providing a 10-foot wide utility easement along the properties adjacent to the right-of-way line. This here will give FPL the ability to, during the ultimate configuration, the overhead services will be converted to underground. It will give them a location to place all those utilities. Right now, at 100, we are building the ultimate configuration, so there are some FPL utilities that need to be relocated now, and they may need to get into these easements, so we are processing all those easements at this time to be prepared to move forward.
Carl, looking at that map, what happens in that space between the two red lines?
This here is privately owned property at the time. Eventually, when the ultimate configuration is needed, that will need to be added into that missing segment will need to be dealt with at that time.
In the meantime, nothing will happen.
Right.
Carl, on that map or on the previous right-of-way map, on this map where it says FPL 1, it appears that there is not sufficient width for the ultimate configuration of 4-laning. Why is that?
There is, the roadway is not a linear project. There is some movement in the roadway. This does accommodate the ultimate configuration,
Okay.
this layout.
It would have been helpful to see an overlay of the ultimate roadway configuration, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah. All right.
The next item on the agenda is an easement for the Town Center CDD. This is the lot that's on the corner of 100 and Bulldog Drive, a city-owned property. This is an easement area to provide a triangle-shaped area here to the town center, roughly 2,000 square feet. It allows them to construct the town center sign or signage in that area, similar to what they have. This is a photo from the town center entrance on Belterre, where they in each corner, they have one of their signs. Then the budget for the project. This is a snapshot of the CRA budget. Basically, we have two line items in here for Bulldog Drive, the design and CEI in the construction phase. That gets us this $4,675,000. And then there's a line item in here for land purchases, just over $500,000. And the funding of the project from that SR 100 CRA, that's where all the funding dollars are coming from for this project. We actually have budgeted just over $5 million. Actually, these are the actual expenses. They're just over $5 million. The revised budget gets us into that amount, just over $5 million, coming from those two line items that were just highlighted. Bulldog Drive had $4,675,000, and then there's a transfer from the land line item at $357,000. That will bring us up to the funding level needed for those items that are presented here today. And this is the last slide of the presentation.
Okay, council questions. As in the previous, we have items 10 through 15. Any questions on any of those items?
Yes.
Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Carl, why not run the FPL easement up the west side of the road? Is there water and stormwater pipes and not room for it over there?
Yeah, currently the FPL lines are on the east side of the roadway now. We do have utilities on both sides of the roadway, and in some spots you get real tight, some of the existing, the hockey rink, the building that's there. This will serve the property development on the east side as well, if the service is on that side of the roadway.
Okay.
Well, Jason, you'd be willing to get rid of the hockey rink.
Well, if we relocated somewhere, maybe perhaps, but, well, that makes a lot of, I didn't really think of it. Oh, most of the connections will be on the east side of the road, so it would make more sense that they
Right.
run down the east side of the road. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lewis.
Carl, for construction purposes, the school will be in session or not be in session? Because the buses will have to go somewhere.
Yes, correct. This is another phase project, and it will begin while school is in session, and the goal is to have it substantially complete for use before school is back in session next year in the fall. So the operations will begin. We've been working hand in hand with the school district and the high school staff on what operations are going to occur while school is in session, when the transfer of some of the traffic movements, when they're going to change. It's going to be a work in progress. Things will change with them. We do have a plan in place. We presented that to our bidders. We discussed it with them during the bidding period. So it will happen during both, while in session and hopefully complete while they're out of session over the summer.
And what is your contingency plans in the event that there's an overlap with time?
Right. There will be one in place. That's going to be something that's monitored on a daily basis. That's part of the duties of having the CI firm there every day, is to have a detailed construction schedule from the contractor, making sure they stick to that schedule, and then as we are moving along, not waiting to the end and say, oh, we got a problem, it's going to be, on a daily basis, we're starting to fall behind. What are we going to do to move forward? Are we going to work a weekend? Are we going to, create a temporary access here? It'll be a work in progress. It's something that's going to be monitored very closely.
Good.
And I want to stress that we've been working with school district on that plan as to what work will happen while school's in session and what work will happen during the summer. It is going to be a very critical timeframe.
I could just mention that I was going to say the same thing. I received an email yesterday regarding hockey, and the coordination with the school seems to be very good because they're already anticipating where they're going to have us park, during certain phases of the construction. So obviously that coordination is very strong because they're already looking at, how it's going to affect the youth center, during construction.
Absolutely. Both the school administration and central administration. We've made a couple presentations. School board itself, we're a strong partner. They are very, very much in favor of this because of traffic issues at the school and then also the flooding issues. So it's been a good partnership with them.
Mr. Lennon, have you had conversations as to the cooperation and between us and the school district when they lose their operations manager at the end of January? Because there'll be somebody new, I would assume, coming in to take Mike Judd's place, and I would assume he's the guy that is your main partner in this.
Yes, well, but he has a number of division heads, the transportation person, the maintenance people, they've all been in the room. So we're well aware of the fact we're going to lose Mike, which is, he's been great to work with, so it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But we feel very confident that he's had a team involved and that it should go smoothly, even with his absence.
I would hope so. I would hope he has a plan in place that says, okay, when I'm gone, here's who does what, much as Chief Beadle did with the tornado disaster.
Yep, and we work with the school district on a regular basis on a variety of projects, so we have a very good coordinated effort with them. So
I know you do, but I just want to express my concern because the timing of this is going to affect this project, in my opinion.
yes, absolutely.
Other council questions? Seeing none, as with the previous grouped resolutions, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. Anyone wish to speak on any of the items 10 through 15? This is your opportunity to speak on items 10 through 15. Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, go back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion on agenda item number 10?
One question, Your Honor, if I may.
Please.
What's the timing of this, Carl, in conjunction with the six-laning project on Palm Coast Parkway? Are the two concurrent?
Pretty much. Our target date, start date here is February 3rd to begin construction on this project and then be done in August, or substantially done in August.
Okay,
So this will end earlier than the six landing. It's a smaller project.
thank you.
Mayor, I've just was informed that we have a little hiccup in the agenda and that the CRA board has to approve this also. So this will come back to you as the CRA board in January. Doesn't change anything for us, but the auditors will technically want the CRA board to.
We'll get another bite at the apple.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Is there a motion on agenda item number 10?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 11, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 12, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 13, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 14, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 15, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second, moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Let's move on. Agenda item number 16, resolution approving a purchase of materials and other expenses for the Seminole Woods multi-use path. Mr. Landon.
Mayor, City Council, this is another capital project we've been working on for quite some time. This one's a little different because this is one of our in-house projects. Both design and construction has all taken place in-house. I want to start off with this one by highlighting the fact that we do have a master plan for our sidewalk and path improvements. And we have made many accomplishments within that master plan. And that this was the next one on the list. It's gone through our capital improvement program priority process. It's worked out very well. You know, this is one of those that every time we have a path go in, someone says, when's mine's next? And I want to stress that we have that plan and we're continuing to move forward with it and that there are more to come, but this is the one that's the highest priority at this time. Don is going to give the presentation as to schedule and dollars and where we are with this one. So Don, take it from here.
Mr. Lannon, before he does, I would be interested, very interested, since the city is going to undertake this ourselves, I would like to see a cost comparison between what we're doing these for as what it would cost based on past projects.
Well, that's easy to do because we've contracted many of these and we can.
I know you have, but I want to see when it's done, how it compares with what's being done otherwise.
Will do. Well, since we will do that and get that back to you. Probably could do it even while it's going on. Let me also stress, though, that the time frame that Don is going to give you here, I don't know this yet, but I would not be surprised if it's not delayed some, because the crews that are out working tornado cleanup, that's obviously a priority, and they're the ones that do these type of capital projects too. So we haven't tried to adjust the schedule, but I would just put that out as a little caveat right now that the tornado obviously could change some of our schedule somewhat depending on how long our crews are out there. Don, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the long-awaited Seminole Woods Path, and just to piggyback on what Mr. Landon was saying, I spoke to Mike Marinelli this morning. Mike will be the supervisor on site for construction, and he is still working diligently to have a start date of January 6th. That may change depending on what happens, and barring anything else unforeseen, we're still shooting very hard at January 6th for a start date. So, as Mr. Landon said, this was done completely in-house. All survey work, engineering work was done in-house, permitting. Staff has been phenomenal, I can't say enough. I was assigned this project 2.5, 3 months ago, had a lot of moving parts, and everybody has just stepped up to make sure that we did meet this construction time frame. Contract for the project will be Public Works, completely in-house as well, and it is part of our CIP plan. The project was broken down into 6 phases because of the length, and for design purposes and construction purposes, we broke it down into phases. What we're talking about today is Phase 1, which is SR 100 to the south Ulatern, and that goes past Pinnacles and the water treatment plant for Flagler. And we're presently working on the design for Phase 2, and we'll be doing Phase 3, and we'll just be going from one to the next. As I said, Phase 1 is starting at SR 100 to Ulatern. Barring anything unforeseen, we should start first week in January, and we actually are going to start on the southern end of the project and work our way north. That has more to do with ordering and lead times from some materials that we have coming. And then from there, we will go right into Phase 2, which will bring us up to citation.
Don, I have a question.
Sure.
On your schedule. Are you or Captain Mike going to be the on-site supervisors when this starts?
For this project, I'm actually the project manager for the design phase. Once it starts construction, I will very gladly hand Phase 1 over to Tony Capella as the project manager. But Tony and I have worked very closely together. I spoke with Mike this morning. I will be available whenever they need, and they can pick up the phone and call anybody in our department.
Don, that's my question. Don't you have some stormwater projects in that time frame? How are you going to split your time between the two?
We'll make it happen. Yes, we have some We have a weir project that's coming up. We have some other good-sized projects, but absolutely, I have every confidence in Tony and his crews.
So do I, but, I mean, I just don't want us to be, we have a lot of talent on our staff, but I'm concerned that you're spread too thin. If you're not, I take it all back.
Let me address that. You know, we show you the capital improvement plan that has that schedule. We have one internally that shows who's assigned to it. You know, it's interesting, but you just saw Carl Cody come up with a couple of huge projects. That we are all thin right now. We are, Don is, but what the team did, the I-team did, is they took all the projects and said, okay, let's all work together and figure out the best way that we can get these things done. As you just heard, this started off as Carl's project. Then it got to a point where Don took it over from a coordinating design, and then he will pass it on to Tony, all of them being involved as part of the team. So, yes, Mr. McGuire, we've got a lot going on right now, but that's why we've had all this planning, that's why we've had put together the schedules, and it's also why you've heard and you've approved on-site inspectors from the private sector, because we needed somebody that's on those jobs every day, and we just don't have those resources right now. So
Well, please don't construe my question as a lack of confidence in our staff. I think they're all solid gold, but, you know, having managed projects before, as have you, things don't always go according to plan.
Right, and that's, I didn't construe it that way, but I'm just trying to say that, you know, we also are very concerned, but I have great confidence that with the team approach, that these guys are all stepping up and all helping each other. And we've tried to stress that these are our projects and not individual department projects.
Okay.
I'm actually...
You sold me.
I'm actually trying to brag about them, because they've done a great job. A lot of people would say, it's not my department. Well, but it's our city, and it's all our plan. And it's just great to watch them work together.
Right, and what Mr. Landon's saying is, it's not just a team approach with me and Tony and Mike Marinelli. As you said, I'm going to be busy, Tony will be busy doing his. If Mike needs anything any given day of the week, if I can't get up there, he can call Mike, he can call Scott Bombardier, he can call anybody in the department, and somebody will show up and get him the answer he needs. Staff has been, I can't say enough about staff, they've been fantastic through this whole process.
I can't say enough about staff either, Don. I want to make sure that we don't, you know, crush them with a heavy load.
Big shoulders.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Council questions on agenda item number 16.
Oh, quickly, this was the approved budget. I'll move through it quickly. I know you've sat through some long ones. And this is the budget for Phase 1, which will bring us up to the Southern Yule Turn. Actually, my apologies. This actually brings us through what will be done this year. We will go from Phase 1 to Phase 2 up to Citation. Phase 3 will bring us up to Sesame. So we'll just cover everything that is scheduled for this calendar year, this fiscal year. And that's it.
Funding is predicated on what?
I'm sorry?
Funding.
Funding, it was in our capital improvement.
Go back to the budget, you kind of did that one quick.
Yeah, I went through this pretty quick, yes. That was the approved capital improvement plan budget.
With the 1.4 million plus 500, about 200 million total has been allocated. We won't get all that built this year just because of time, but it's all budgeted in the capital improvement plan.
Good enough. Additional council questions on agenda item number 16? Seeing none, let's open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 16? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion meeting. Back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
Move for adoption.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries that objection. This brings us to the consent agenda, items 17 through 21. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on any of the consent agenda items before we determine if City Council wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda? Otherwise, it will be considered as a group. Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, go back to council. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries that objection. This brings us to the public participation portion of the meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to speak on any item not on the agenda. It could be items of general interest. It could be items that piqued your curiosity from one of our workshops. This is the opportunity to speak. Please approach the podium, give us your name, limit your contribution to 3 minutes.
Louis McCarthy, Palm Coast. I wish to compliment the chief, Beadle, police, sheriff's department, and staff. From what I heard from my neighbor who was sitting next to me, which happened a couple of houses away from her, things have been horrendous over there, and I have no intentions of going over there sightseeing. I've seen a whole lot of that in my time. So, but I just wanted to say it was a thorough presentation by the chief. And my compliments to everybody that's out there working, volunteers and all, to you, members of the city council, and to our city manager, and everybody that's involved. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, Lois DaCosta, Palm Coast. My husband and I both live on Bayside Drive, and we're about 200 yards from the home on the corner, which lost its roof. Our neighbors diagonally across had the side door to their garage blown open during the tornado, and their dog, which they got at Flagler Humane Society, was supposed to be a black lab, but he turned out to be a Great Dane. And everybody in the neighborhood knew about the big black Great Dane who was loose. So we got into our car Sunday morning, drove to their home, and thought, we have a car, they can get their car out of the garage. If Bear was anywhere in sight, we were going to load him into the car and get him home. But we had a very heartwarming story in the midst of all the tragedy. And Hank, who owns the dog, is in his 80s, found the dog in a panic, had his leash, was trying to hold him down. The fire department was on the corner, the police were on the corner, the news people were on the corner by that time. Bear was scared. A young 19-year-old boy came up and said, "Sir, may I help you?" He said, "Could you lift this dog?" The kid said, "Sure I can." And he lifted up a Great Dane and hauled him a block, about a city block, back to Hank and Phyllis's house and saved the dog. And it was just very heartwarming and very nice. And all of the neighbors were around speaking with one another. It brought people out, we met people. The tragedy is terrible. We have traffic that just keeps coming and coming. And the sergeant who was trying to direct it was great. The patrolmen were stopping us and asking us where we were from, what we were doing. And we were happy to see them. We were happy to have them. It is a very deep tragedy, but the people who came out to help and the camaraderie and the, I call it neighborliness, because so many people don't know their neighbors and don't want to know perhaps their neighbors. But we know our neighbors by their first names. We know where they live, we walk our loop, and people come forth and help. And it was a very heartwarming, very sad thing. And as we threw our coats out of the coat closet with our code red call, jumped into the closet and heard the train come through, it was very nice to know that we had EOC and police and fire and people helping us. I wouldn't want to live through it again. Thank you very much. Once is more than enough, but I will say there are some very good people out there, and we're so grateful for all the help we've had. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker. Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion meeting to back to City Council. Thank you both for the very kind words. I think we're all very proud of our city staff, and he did about as good a job as you could possibly expect under those circumstances. Discussion by city council of matters not on the agenda. Mr. Ferguson, we'll start with you.
I don't have anything to offer, Your Honor.
Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Well, we've covered it over and over again, but staff has done just an incredible job. We could have had a lot of big problems. We were a little bit lucky. I know that there's quite a few people that are going to have to rebuild their lives, but we had no loss of life. That's incredible. We were very lucky to have all those people down in town center and for it to go north and affect some other people. But if we would have had that storm come through during the parade, at the parade location, we would have been talking about something completely different today. So,
Mr. Lewis.
I just want to echo the same comments. It's even Saturday night, which was horrendous. The rain was coming down, and the little kids were marching at the time, and I was just so worried about the kids being run over by the grown-up trying to get out of the park. But we didn't have any accidents or anything like that. And Sunday morning and Monday morning, I took the tour, and the city was out there working, doing their best. So congratulations to everyone.
Mr. McGuire.
Well, I guess I'll throw in my 2 cents. Not to outdo the mayor's eyebrows on eggs, but cream rises to the top. And I think this shows that we've got professionals in the city of Palm Coast in charge of the various activities that have to take place. As I said at the county commission last night, and I say it again today, we had a plan. Everybody knew what the plan was. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, and it worked. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Discussion by city attorney of matters not on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor, Council. This is just a short update, a little bit of foreshadowing on some election issues. As all of you may remember, some time ago, the Flagler County Supervisor of Elections raised concerns about her office's use of city facilities for the conduct of the 2014 and future elections in Flagler County and Palm Coast. Almost immediately after this council responded to her requests and her demands, the supervisor raised challenges to the propriety and validity of the city's 2011 referendum, at which our voters overwhelmingly approved moving our elections to the even years. And the purpose of that, as was stated in the referendum itself, was to increase voter participation and to decrease the financial burden on the city's taxpayers for the conduct of those elections. As all of you know and remember, each city election is preceded by an interlocal agreement with the supervisor, and the city pays the supervisor to conduct the city's elections. Preceding that 2011 Palm Coast referendum, the supervisor indeed recognized and confirmed the great savings should the voters approve that referendum question, which they did by over 80%. The State of Florida Division of Elections and the city responded to and addressed the supervisor's issues with regard to that election, that referendum. Further, prior appellate court decisions and Attorney General's opinions dispel her contentions. And I've discussed this with you previously in earlier meetings. So most recently, the supervisor has expressed additional concerns about the city's charter, namely its provisions regarding the candidate qualifying process and absentee ballots. These are non-issues. The 2011 referendum, which the voters approved, explicitly anticipated an ordinance amending the city's charter regarding the city's qualifying procedure. Your city clerk with our office has already prepared this. It's done. It'll be brought to you in the immediate future. This will be done in a timely basis, given that the elections are upcoming in the summer and the fall of 2014. Further, the Division of Elections has opined repeatedly that the city's charter provisions regarding absentee ballots applies only to a city standalone election. The state's absentee ballot process will control the 2014 elections, as it is combined with the state, federal, county, and city elections. This is pursuant to and consistent with the state's election code. We have to follow. So at this time, moving forward, our office is going to work with your city clerk in preparing and drafting an interlocal agreement, like we always do, to present to the Supervisor of Elections for the 2014 elections. We hope to be able to work with her to bring that negotiated agreement to you in the near future. Available for any questions you may have about this report.
Mr. Reichman, would a discussion of this be considered quasi-judicial?
No, sir, this is not a quasi-judicial matter.
If, and I throw this out just for consideration, if the SOE cannot be compelled to conduct an election to the city, we'll have to have a fallback position. Would we consider an ad hoc committee to put together some sort of a plan for this? What's your opinion on that, Mr. Reichman?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that since I've been with the city as working with our firm for the city attorney for the city of Palm Coast, the supervisor of elections has always conducted our elections. In the event that she was unwilling to do so in this case, I know that your city clerk has already thought about that and started working out, if you will, given what we've talked about today, a contingency plan. I'll defer to this council and to the city clerk and to the city manager and whether there would be the need and whether it be appropriate, the appropriateness of an ad hoc committee. Maybe just the city clerk. But I feel confident. I feel confident that we can, that your administration and your city clerk and our office, if it has to be done, can conduct the elections without the involvement of the supervisor's office.
But I think that if we end up having to do this, then I think we're well advised to, approach the county and ask for some remuneration because, part of the money that we pay to the county is to secure elections from the SOE.
If I could interject, it's hard to fathom that the supervisor election would refuse to allow our two seats to be on the county, state, federal-wide ballot. But with that said, just like we talk about talent of emergency services or people out in the crew, out in the streets, we have very talented people in the office too, and Virginia Smith has demonstrated that. She works very well with our legal counsel. They have a lot of experience. We will move forward, and we will move forward with what the city will do to make the election go as smoothly as possible, and then also what would be logical for the supervisor of election to assist us on putting the two seats on the ballot. It just would be make no sense to have two separate elections going on at the same time. If she refuses, she hasn't refused, she's just indicated to us she knows she doesn't have to conduct the election for us, then we will be prepared. And we've already started that preparation and make sure that this important governmental function is carried out in a logical manner the best we can with hopefully the assistance of the supervisor of election. And we will be presenting what we need to present to City Council. We need your help to take some certain action, as you always do. We will be presenting that to you in a timely fashion like is normal for us. And that will include that game plan as to what we're going to do and what the supervisor election will do. As Bill has indicated, there's some ordinances. We've known about this for quite, but this is what we do, for each election. This is not something new. This is not something different. Well, it's a little bit different because of the charter change, but it's all been planned out. We will have contingency, but we're confident that we'll get this done in an efficient manner at this point.
Mr. Reichman.
Yes, sir.
Can, under state law, can the SOE refuse to conduct an election for a municipality?
She can.
She can.
That has been confirmed already with the Division of Elections. I want to say again, and reiterate what I've said and what your city manager has said, is that we are optimistic. We are working on, at this time, the preparation an interlocal agreement with the supervisor's office, and we'll be working very hard to make sure that we can bring back to you that interlocal agreement so that we can move forward in a prudent and logical way with the supervisor to conduct the 2014 elections.
Council comments? I will withhold my comment until we see, but there are lots of options available to us and to the public. Discussion by city manager of matters not on the agenda.
I'm going to do one more summary of our efforts with the tragedy we had this weekend. And that is just add that there's a lot of people, a lot of staff members from the city and other agencies that work behind the scenes that are also to be congratulated. A lot of people in the office, they show up, whether they're people answering phones or just assisting to make sure that the frontline people out in the field can do their job. It's just great to see them all kind of come together and work together and do exactly what they're supposed to do. So hats off to everybody involved, including those people that are not visible out there that help. With that, it's hard to believe, for me at least, is that we're talking about schedule and everything and then realize that, well, Christmas is next week. And that we were actually off Monday through Wednesday of next week for the Christmas holiday. We were already looking at making sure that we will continue with the recovery effort as needed next week, but I wanted to just inform everybody that our schedule for the holiday is city offices are closed Monday through Wednesday next week, and then the following week they will be closed on Wednesday for the 1st is what the schedule is. So I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. This will be your last meeting this year. Your workshop, which would normally happen the last Tuesday of the month, is obviously going to be canceled. That's the Tuesday between Christmas and New Year's. The next business meeting is January 7th. Right now, we have no business on that, and probably will be able to cancel that too.
What are we supposed to do for coffee?
Well, the county commission will keep him busy.
Wow. So probably it'll be the following Tuesday, the 14th is a workshop, and then the 21st for your next business meeting from a city council's meeting standpoint. So just I guess I'll wish you all in the community a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's been a very good year for us, and been very, very pleased with the progress we've made this year, and really heading in a very positive direction. So I wanted to say thank you to you all too.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Move we adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you for your help. We are.